Today we're gonna make a chocolate cookie, but it's not a regular cookie. It's a mix between cookie and brownie. So many people call it a brookie. It's a very soft cookie, and the method of making it is a little bit different than a regular cookie. So this is what we're gonna demonstrate today. Recipe will be also shown, but here we have basically our mise en place. What does mise en place mean? Mise en place means you weigh everything on your recipe already beforehand, so that you don't forget anything. So whenever you do a recipe, my tip is that even if you cut the recipe in half, you write it next to your recipe that you don't make any mistakes, because you don't want to waste any ingredients. So, and then when you ready with your recipe, you weigh everything and you prepare everything. Again, you double check with your recipe that you don't forget anything. So if you look at our overhead camera, you can see that we have two types of chocolate. One we will melt. So today we use the Sapalme 60%. We use the Sapalme 60%. What is a single origin from Ghana? What means single origin? That means for us, for Felchlin, that it comes from one area, one country, from one region. There's no other chocolate from other areas. It only comes from one area. We look after our farmers and it comes directly from them. So today we have the Sapalme 60%, what comes from Ghana. Then we have walnuts, butter, eggs, 2 eggs. We use here large eggs. In the recipe it says 125 grams. So if you use large eggs, they are around 60 to 65 grams. So that will be the 125 grams. Then we have sugar, salt, baking powder, flour, and then we have cocoa powder. So cocoa powder as well from Felchlin is 20 to 22%. What does that mean? It means that it contains 20 to 25% cocoa butter. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do, we put the chocolate and the butter in a bain-marie. Okay. Bain-marie is basically a water bath. So you just boil water and then you put the pot on top of it and you melt the item. Then in our mixer, we add our 2 eggs. Since I mentioned already, it's a little different recipe than a regular cookie. Normally you whip your butter or you just make it soft. In this cookie, we melt the butter. And then here we have the eggs and we take half of the sugar to whip it up. So why we only put half of the sugar? So in the eggs, when we whip it up, the sugar will get dissolved. And then the other part of the sugar we add afterwards. So the sugar will not melt. So you have some kind of sugar crystals in the cookie. So you get a different texture afterwards when you bake it. It will get a little bit louder for 2-3 minutes. Just bear with me. Then we have here, we have the mixer who is chopped. We have the other half of the chocolate, that's 225 grams of the Sapalme. And then we have walnuts. What will go in the end in the cookie. So what we do is this. We just roughly chop it. You don't want to cut the pieces too small, because these pieces, after baking, you will have some liquid chocolate in the cookie. Sorry, like everybody else at the moment, we work in in a home kitchen, so this is a smaller scale. Of course, people will ask, can I use a different chocolate compared to now to the Sulfania 60%? If you use a higher percentage chocolate, the outcome will be a little bit different. The outcome will be a little bit different. Like everywhere in a recipe, when you change some ingredients, it will change your texture. Maybe the look, the appearance a little bit. So this is all specific for this Sulfania 60%. Same with the walnuts. You just roughly chop them. You don't want to cut it too small, because it's always nice if you have a cookie and you have something to bite on. Many people ask, okay, can I use different nuts? Can I use pecans? Can I use hazelnut? And again, it's always up to you who makes the cookie. You can be creative as you want. This is basically because it's like a brownie. So we use walnut, that is traditional, or pecan nuts. So this is usually used in a brownie. Okay. Very roughly. Okay. Again, here the nuts are not roasted, so I use the raw nuts, and then maybe you can see better. So just roughly. Maybe you can understand me better. As you can see, let me just move a little bit the mixer. You tell me better. Okay. So now you can see the egg and the sugar. It's already whipped up. The chocolate is almost melted. Just let me get the last pieces out. Okay. Okay. And then let me move it a little bit easier for you. Okay, so here we have the eggs now, the chocolate and the butter mixed together. Make sure that the egg yolk is stiff, but not too stiff. We call it like a semi-whipped. Yeah. We will add, for people who just maybe joined, we have two cameras. So one is an overhead. You can click on it on Chef Reinhold, and then you can see from above what we're gonna do. And then it's important when you mix it, always from the middle out. Yeah. So always nice on the bottom, so the whole chocolate gets mixed. Okay. Make sure everything is nicely incorporated. I mean, if you look now, this is completely different to any other cookie recipe. Like I said before, normally you whip the butter or you cream the butter. Here we have basically the eggs, sugar, and then the chocolate and the melted butter. Then we have the rest of the sugar, 55 grams. We have the salt. We will mix this together. It's always better to mix things together before you add it to the pattern, because it gets nicer incorporated. Yeah? So we add this. Again. Nicely. Okay. Why we add salt? First of all, here we put a little bit more salt to get also a salty taste, what always goes nice with the chocolate. But in general, whenever you make a cake, a sponge, anything, you always put a pinch of salt. The reason is, maybe everybody knows, when they make a soup at home, you don't put salt in it, it has no taste. I mean, the cookie will still have taste, but salt enhances your taste. So it's always better to put a little bit of salt, like a pinch in it, to get a better outcome. Then, what we have here, maybe on the overhead, you see, we have the flour, baking powder, we put together. And then we, so cocoa powder, and then we have the baking powder. Same thing with the salt and the sugar. It's always better to mix first a little bit together. And then on this one, you should sieve it. In general, every flour, you should always sieve it. So because you will see on the end, you will have a little bit lumps. There's humidity, the flour gets little lumps. The cocoa powder will have a little bit lumps from the cocoa butter, from the humidity. And if you don't sieve it, where you see here now, where it's nice, you will have in the end product sometimes you have a flour pocket or things like that, and it's not nice. So you can see here now, we have like the lumps, you can squeeze them in. And then again, the folding. Make sure everything is nicely mixed. Go to the bottom. As you can see, the mixture is very, very soft because it contains a lot of chocolate, less flour. So, and then we have the walnuts, chocolate, and then nicely make sure everything is nicely covered. So you can see it's a very, very soft mixture. So because it contains so much chocolate, you put it then in a container and put it in the chiller for approximately 1 hour. And then afterwards, it is set already, as you can see. Okay, so just make sure you keep it in the chiller for half an hour until it sets, and then you can take it out, and then you can actually mold it. Because otherwise, this one, see, this one will be too soft to portion it. But here you can see big chunks of chocolate, walnuts, what will be then nice to bite on it. So, then you can make your own size of cookies. In our recipe we do like 65 grams, like an American cookie size. So as well, the baking time and the temperature is based on that size. Okay. Here, a little tip. If you want to do always the same size of cookies, you can use an ice cream scoop. Yeah. This one is 65 grams. This cookie. So you take it out. Portion it. Just to show you some example. And then just make it round and flatten it a little bit, like this. Okay. You can leave it in one bulk, but then you have a very thick cookie, because it's not, it is running a little bit, but not too much. What you can do now is these cookies. Sorry, I just switched my hand. What you can do with these cookies, you don't have to bake everything at one time, because we all like fresh cookies. Yeah. So what you actually can do, you portion it and then you put it in the freezer. So whenever you want your 2 pieces of fresh cookies, you take it out, you put it on your tray, you let it defrost, maybe 20 minutes, and then you put it in the oven. So on this one, if it's 65 grams, it's around 13 to 15 minutes at 190 degrees. The time and the temperature is not set in stone. Okay, every oven is different. Maybe you have a gas oven, maybe you have an electric oven. So my advice is when you bake the first time a cookie, you set it maybe at 10 minutes. You check how the cookie looks. If it's not baked enough, you put 1 more minute. If it's still not baked, another minute. So you will find out with your oven what is the best temperature. And then the next time when you bake it, it's very simple. You know, it's 12 minutes. You put it in at 190 and it will be perfect. So like in every cooking show, magic, the cookie is already baked. Sorry. And then you will have cookies like this. Right? So, which one I go? This camera. If you see, it's a very soft cookie. It's like brownie-like. Okay, big chunks of nuts. Very soft. Very nice to eat. The chocolate and the butter before, maybe I should also mention, if you don't want to do it on memory, maybe you have a microwave, you can put it in a microwave. If you put it in a microwave, set it on 10-second impulses, 10 seconds, take it out, mix it, 10 seconds. It will take maybe 1.5 minutes to melt. You can do this as well. So then that's basically the cookie recipe. If you make a smaller one, maybe you make only 30 grams because you don't want to have a big cookie. Start maybe with 6-7 minutes baking and then check on your oven. A little thing, I know it's cookie, people say, oh, it's only a cookie, but on the end, not only in Dubai, it's hot, also in Singapore, It's always 30 degrees. So it's always nice to have maybe ice cream sundae, for example. So what you can do, you take, 1 second. We have here. You can see it. We have ice cream. You made some raspberry compote. This is a very simple raspberry compote. I just used 200 ml of milliliter of orange juice. I used 10 gram of cornstarch, and from the 200 milliliter, I take 40 gram of the juice and mix it with the cornstarch. Boil the orange juice, add slowly the cornstarch mixture, boil it for 1 minute so the cornstarch flavor, you will not have it. So you always should cook it a little bit longer. And then I use frozen raspberries here. You can use frozen cherries, any frozen fruit. Normally when it boils, I take it away, I put in the whole frozen berries, and what will happen, it will cool down automatically. I don't cook it anymore. So the berries will stay in big pieces, so it's like chunks in it. If you cook it more, it will just everything fall apart. Just a little tip on the side. Okay, so we make a ice cream sundae. So just take ice cream. Okay. Let me get some spoons. With the raspberries. I did intentionally not put any sugar in the raspberry compote. I like when it's sweet, a little bit sour, a little bit crunchy. The crunchiness comes from the cookie. So if you make everything sweet, it's just too much. So you break up your cookie. Then we have some whipped cream. And we have some chocolate cherries. So if you have some cherries, sour cherries, you can make a sour cherry compote. So basically, you have a Black Forest sundae. And then you have a little sundae for the hot days.